Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Greg Leonard, and on behalf of the Ponte Vedra and Palm Valley Community Associations, I want to welcome you to the 2026 St. Johns County Commissioner Candidate Forum. The purpose of tonight's event is for all of us to get to know each of these candidates for County Commissioner, both in District 2. The first 4 individuals here are running for that seat, and the last 3 are running for District 4. And to learn their position on the issues that are most important to voters in St. Johns County. 6 of these candidates are new, at least as far as I know, they're totally new to politics in St. Johns County. So there's a lot we need to know about these folks, and I think a lot of us are here tonight because we do want to understand who they are, how they think, and particularly how they think about those issues that are most important to us in this wonderful county in which we live. It's interesting that this year, all registered voters, whether Republican, Democrat, or Independent, get to vote for our county commissioners. That is highly unusual, and that means that there should be a better turnout than would otherwise happen at the primary on August 18th. And then that primary will decide the winner for both districts, so please keep that in mind. Our moderator tonight is Dr. Sean Frieder. Dr. Frieder worked with us 2 years ago when we did a similar candidate forum here. He is Associate Professor of Political Science and also Director of the Public Opinion Research Lab at the University of North Florida. He's very highly qualified. And he certainly, as we organize these meetings, brings a lot of value to how to create the right kind of thoughtful interaction with candidates. So I'd like us to give a warm welcome both to Professor Frieder and to all of our county commission candidates. Before we begin, we are blessed by having a member of the local scout troop, Mr. Kevin Radigan, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Remove this. Test it.
Hello? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And now I'd like to turn over the evening's proceedings to Professor Frieder. Please begin the forum.
All right, thank you all for being here. Before we begin tonight, we would just like to briefly go over the rules for the forum. Our candidates have been placed in alphabetical order and grouped by the office for which they're running. District 2 candidates are closest to me, and then our District 4 candidates. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to a given question, and our timekeeper will signal when you have 30 seconds, and then no time left. There she is right there. At the end of your time, I'll move on to the next candidate. If you go over your time, I may interrupt you to move on to the next candidate. All candidates will have an opportunity to respond to all questions, and we will rotate the order of who goes first between questions. For our candidates, we ask you to stick entirely to your position on the issues and refrain from making personal attacks on the candidates on stage. Those in violation once will lose their opportunity to answer the next question, and if in violation once more, may be asked to leave the forum. Just to be clear on this, what would not be permitted would be critical references to individuals on stage right now. What would be permitted, totally fair game, critical references to groups or their actions such as the county government or the board. So again, that's fair game. For the audience, in the interest of making sure that we get to hear from all of the candidates on all the questions, please refrain from making noise, positive or negative, during or after our candidates' responses, and please hold all applause until the end of the evening. Before we begin here, I'll just finally introduce our candidates. Immediately to my left, Heather Brawford, then Tim Burris, Will McMullen, Martin Pishmuka. James Austin Galloway is not here yet, but he will be with us imminently, as I understand it. Then Krista Keating-Joseph, and Sam Williams. All right, we will go ahead and begin. Our opening question will start here with Ms. Brawford. Why are you seeking election to the St. John's Board of County Commissioners, and what experience or qualifications make you the best candidate for this position?
I just test this mic. Does everyone hear me okay? Okay, thank you. You guys, I have a candidacy that I just ended and had to resign from regarding the 6 Mile Creek CDD board. What I did there is I advocated for residents. I made sure that developers paid what they needed to pay in order to make our budget-friendly community to be able to sustain what needed to be done. Public safety was one of my top priorities. I was elected in 2024 by my other residents of the 6 Mile Creek community district. And what we did together was we were able to install a stoplight that was presently not available until the last 10 years when I was on the board. So there was many accidents that were happening at the intersection of Trailmark Drive and Passetti Road. There was a non-working light. Immediately when I was inducted into the seat, I worked with the county and I worked with our community leaders to ensure that we had a clear development plan to get that light in. I also saved them money, like I said. I am not new to this political campaign. I'm just new to all of you all around St. Johns County, and I look forward to serving you in the near future. Thank you.
I'm Tim Burrs, and I've resided in St. Johns County for 54 years. 46 years have been in the district that I'm seeking. In that time, I've seen so many changes, mostly positive and negative. I did 25 years at the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, where I held many positions, seen different parts of the county, how it's grown, how it's developed over the years. I served in the United States Army, Desert Storm veteran, so I've seen differences of the country as well as overseas as well. I'm not a politician. This is my first time seeking any position in politics. I think the county needs a leader. It needs a leader that has vision. It needs a leader that's seen where we were and also has a vision on where we need to go in the future. I believe I hold those qualifications. I believe I have a good, idea going forward. But what we also have to do is we have to have a commission that's functionable. We have to have a commission that's committed to serving the people of this county and not self-serving. We need a board that's going to get along. We need to have a board that's in the best interest of the county and the citizens they represent.
Hello. Hi, y'all. I'm Will McMullen. I'm a native Floridian. I was born in Miami. My parents moved to Ponte Vedra when I was 2 years old. I actually was baptized in this church, went to preschool in this church, and my daughter, who's due in November, is already signed up for preschool here, too. And I was married in this church by Father Remington. I went to PVPV. After that, I went to Bowles and graduated from BK. After graduating, I decided to take the big leap across the pond to Scotland, where I went to the University of St. Andrews, where I got my first master's in environmental science and business management. I met my beautiful wife, Christine, in my first week of freshman year. And when we got to fourth year, she decided that she had not had enough postgraduate education. So she decided, I got to get another master's. So what's a young man in love to do? I was like, well, I got to get another master's too. So I went and got another master's, this time in international finance. After graduating, I went to go work on Wall Street. I did investment banking, hedge funds, high-frequency trading, you name it, I did it. I was extremely good at it until one day I got a phone call that I will never forget. It was from my mother. I was eating lunch at my office. I was eating a bowl of Hale and Hearty soup with a piece of rye bread, and she called me on the phone, and she said, Wilson, are you sitting down? I have breast cancer. So I did what any good son would do, and I immediately made the conditions, and I moved back down to Ponte Vedra Beach, where I've remained ever since here in St. Johns County. Since then, I've worked in a number of industries, from technology, finance, real estate. I currently work in consumer packaged goods, working with some of the world's largest retailers and manufacturers, providing solutions on a daily basis. I got involved in politics because I saw that we have a commission that's asleep at the wheel. So I got involved with the Republican Party, and I was elected as district chairman of District 2, and I'm here to serve, and I'm here to make solutions. Thank you.
Good
Hello.
afternoon.
Does this mic work? Okay. My name is Martin Pishamuka. I'm a retired FBI agent. I specialize in white-collar crime, so I investigated fraud and public corruption. I saw things going on in this county, and in light of recent events, these are the things I was talking about. So I feel like I'm the one that is positioned to be in this seat. I never wanted to be a politician. I am here to protect St. Johns County. I'm also the only person in this whole group that qualified via petition. So everyone who's lived here so long didn't go get the petitions needed to get on the ballot. I talked to over 3,000 people just to get on the ballot. I know what's going on in this county. I knock on doors every day talking to people about what's going on in this county. The radical, reckless overdevelopment is destroying the fabric of this county. I moved here to raise my family in a place that shared my values. We love it here, we love the people here, and we're here to protect St. Johns County.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is James Galloway. I'm from Jacksonville. I'm fifth generation Floridian. And I am married to my beautiful wife, Mercedes. We have an 8-month-old baby, James Jr. And I decided to run because I love St. Johns County. I always had a dream of living here. And in 2007, I opened up a small business. It's a law firm. I adopted the name of Ponte Vedra Beach into the name of my law firm. It's Galloway Law Firm of Ponte Vedra Beach. And I've had a lot of success. And it's because this is a wonderful place. I believe that St. Johns County stands for families, small local businesses, and supporting our seniors. I'll do everything I can to represent you. Thank you.
Ready? I'm actually your county commissioner, Krista Keating Joseph. Doesn't say it on here, but I am here and I have experience, and I just came home from work today, and I just want to tell you about things I've done. Number one, I moved public comment as chair day one to the front because everybody had to wait at the end of the day to be able to tell the commissioners what they had on their mind. I think you guys come first. I'm working for you. I am your representative, so you need to call me and tell me, and I'll call you back. And I'll bet there's some people in this room that I've actually called back or emailed back. Two, I had the comprehensive plan as chair. It passed 5-0. We had multiple town halls. I had 2 town halls here. We talked to everyone what they wanted and everything. It passed 5-0. I got consensus of the entire board to send it to Tallahassee and on time. I advanced the clear-cutting tree protection. I had a 14 tree protection ideas. I got 3 of them to pass, and I'm looking forward to having maybe Martin on the board so we can actually go and get all of them. I raised money for a new ramp on 95 and World Golf for the section of the freeway right by Buc-ee's that has had multiple car accidents, and it's called Death Mile. And the 2 of us work together. We now are fully funded to have the design plan. New Michler bathrooms, if you haven't seen them yet, they are awesome, and I just went over there. I denied 670,000 square foot building on an open rule and in a residential neighborhood that was zoned that could have been. All right, I'll keep going when I get back. Thanks.
My name's Sam Williams. I've lived in this district for 36 years. My wife and I have been married for 33 and raised our children here who went to our public schools. Why am I running for this position is, I served 30 plus years at the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. I worked my way from deputy to sergeant to commander to chief of patrol and eventually to the director of corrections. I obtained a lot of leadership training along the way, many leadership command schools to include the FBI's National Academy. 3% of law enforcement on the planet get that invite, and I was blessed to have that invite. We do need leadership on the board. We need unity. We need a team that works together, solves problems. I'm a listener and I'm a problem solver. I've been doing it for 30 years. That's what we do in law enforcement. We respond to problems and we solve them. And at the jail with 207 employees and a $22 million budget, government's not good with money, but I was able to be smart with the money at the jail
and turn back close to $1 million every year to the Sheriff's General Fund at the end of the budget year, because if we didn't have to spend it, we didn't. We bought what we needed, we made the jail safer, and we took care of the inmates, made sure they were safe and getting educated, and made sure deputies were safe and doing their jobs. Thank you.
All right. For our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Burris. According to a 2026 U.S. Census Bureau report, St. Johns County is the fastest growing county in the state by annualized percentage growth. Housing demand peaked during COVID and has only slowed somewhat since then. How will you approach new development proposals, and what standards will you apply to ensure infrastructure keeps pace with growth?
I know currently we have about 200 housing developments or projects on the book right now for the future. You know, that's concerning that we got to this level. Like I said, you know, living and growing up here in St. Johns County, I remember living where I currently do right now. It was a potato field, it was a cabbage field, it was corn. It produced all of our, you know, our produce in that area. And it's all changed. Now it's traffic, it's infrastructure failures, it's schools. I never thought I would see schools, you know, built on major roadways. You know, we got 2 schools and another one being built right behind Tocoi High School right now. It's right off of a main roadway. We have to ensure that if this growth is going to continue, and it's already been approved and permitted, we need to make sure that it's being paid for by the people that's developing this. It should never respond or be the responsibility of the taxpayer to have to do this. So we got to ensure that developers are paying their fair share. Developers are making the contributions through fees that they need to be. We need to make sure that they're being zoned properly. We need to make sure that the county commission is holding them to the standards that we've put in place. There's a reason that we've put things on the book. They need to abide by them, and we need to make sure we don't make special concessions for them to prevent that from happening. Thank you.
Hello? I can like barely hear myself. Can y'all hear me? Okay, all right, perfect. So yeah, this is not a new issue. One of my formative memories when I was growing up is they had this big protest on Roscoe Road to stop development when it was, you know, mainly trailers and smaller houses, and every single driveway had a little pink flamingo right at the end of their drive. And for some reason, that stuck with me my entire life. And you know, what goes around comes around. So things really haven't changed. But the main issue is I think we're thinking about this entirely wrong. I think that right now the biggest issue we have is that our entire county budget is entirely financed by developer dollars and by housing units. 87 cents of every single dollar of our tax revenue comes from housing, and that's a problem. 13% from all other sources, all businesses, all industry, all agriculture, everything, 13%. The state average is 35%. We've already grown 26% of our population just since 2020, and they anticipate another 17% by the end of the decade, by 2030. That is a big thing. And they say that developers have too much power and control in our county. Well, that's because we depend upon them for our tax revenue. So of course they do. We need to diversify our tax base and at the same time provide opportunities so that children can afford to live and thrive and work here in St. Johns County. They say that talent is the new currency. We have the best schools in the state of Florida, but when our kids, we spend 12 years putting our blood, sweat, and tears into educating these kids and making them the best kids in the entire world, the best workforce in the entire world, and then we send them away because there's no opportunities here. So we can fix our development problem, we can fix our tax problem, we can build a stronger county, and at the same time, build a county where there's opportunities. So when kids graduate, they don't have to leave, and we don't have to break up families.
Well, to answer your question, what will I do to address the problem? Well, first off, I will not approve any more developments that are already on overcapacity roads. This happened just a little over a year ago off of 210. The project is called Title 210. 3 developer-funded commissioners approved the project against 2 commissioners who opposed the project. Everyone talks about unity on the board. We need unity. Thank God for the 2 commissioners who are actually looking out for the residents that live in St. Johns County that are finally opposing these projects. We need a 3rd. We need to re-elect Krista and myself, and that'll give us a majority on the board that's actually looking out for the residents, isn't just going to give you political talking points, and is going to go to bat for the people here. We had the opportunity to fight the state because all of our commissioners always said, oh, we can't do anything, we can't do anything. We could have joined a lawsuit to fight SB 180, which really hampers our ability to control our local home rule. It would have cost $10,000 to join that lawsuit. Did our commissioners do it? Nope, it was 3-2. Developer funded, 2 just got charged, and 2 were fighting it to join a lawsuit who didn't get charged. That tells you something about what's going on in this county.
The most important thing is to have the policies that allow our families to see each other in the evenings instead of sit in traffic for hours and hours, to have roads that are over capacity, and projects where impact fees and infrastructure requirements weren't thoroughly analyzed. It's complicated, but it's very doable with patience and discipline and the ability to work with staff, the other constitutional officers. Everyone wants to see good roads and utilities, and it starts with a good mindset to know what a good project will look like at the end of the day, to be efficient with the resources that we do have, to not over-project a budget that we don't know that we have, and to be very efficient and strategic with our planning. Being a responsible steward of public resources is something that I feel very strongly about. I believe that we have a lot of good people working on staff and fellow commissioners, and we can make this happen together.
Sorry I stand, because I'm more comfortable talking when I'm standing. So just to go over a few things that I have done, I've denied adding traffic to overcapacity roads, which you already mentioned at 210 and Moon Bay Drive, which is 158% overcapacity, but I lost the vote, 3-2. I worked to hold developers accountable for road improvements. Beach Walk, which is finally getting finished, and we did hold that developer accountable. We wouldn't let him build more homes until he finished that. And World Golf Commerce, the same thing. There's also another Grand Oaks, which right now they're begging us to release more homes for them, but they haven't finished the road they promised and said they would pay for. So we are trying as hard as we can to do that, and you have to get 3 votes or nothing can get done. You can be up here and have all these platitudes, but you actually have to get the people that are for you up there and that listen to you. I voted 71 times to 1, 4-1 when I was first 2 years of my being a commissioner. And you know, what's wild is when I was at a meeting and someone said, "You're going to be outvoted every time if you win." This was 4 years ago. I said, well, okay, fine, but if I vote, I'll at least be noisy and let the people know I'm working for them and that there's actually someone who has their voice and will do what they want me to do because I'm your representative. Now, I just saw the growth management gave me the statistics for this month, and growth has been going down for the last 4 years, and it's at its lowest level right now. Thank you.
Okay, can you repeat the question?
I almost did that.
I'll repeat the end of the question. How will you approach new development proposals, and what standards will you apply to ensure infrastructure keeps pace with growth?
Yes, okay. So the answer to that question is, we need data-driven needs assessment done. We need to understand what the county needs. It's obviously that it's growing too rapidly. It's obviously that the building is happening more than the infrastructure is. We got to catch up on our infrastructure. We've got, I don't know how many millions of dollars we're behind in our infrastructure in this county, and yet we took out $120 million loan to build some parks and libraries that we need the impact fees from like 55,000 homes. It's not, well, close to that. Okay, but we're using impact fees that we would use to build for roads. Now we're having to use that to pay the loan for these bonds we've done. And we got to be smarter with our money. We got to treat that budget like it was our own budget. You know, that's the way I handled the jail and saved money. I changed a couple things that we did in the jail, changed the way we did our briefing, saved $300,000 a year. I was able to hire 4 civilians and a certified deputy and ask for less money in the next year's budget because I still had money left over. We just got to be smart with our money. We got to be smart with our future plan and how we're going to develop and move forward. We need to build with a purpose, not just respond to building.
So the last time we were at one of these, the same question was asked, and my husband wasn't able to attend. My husband of 19 years is a truck driver for KeHE. He was out on the road stuck in traffic. Boy, is that frustrating. It sure is frustrating when you're also paying the amount of fees that we pay in our county taxes, and we cannot seem to get over it. We need to have a strong leadership with zoning principles that actually allow for this infrastructure to show these developers that we simply cannot maintain it. And therefore, we won't be able to approve new development because we don't have the money. It's that simple. Zoning and procedures are important to me. Right now, in my neighborhood, we have a lot of addendums that come through. The developer wants to hand over parcels to us to have us maintain and take care of out of the bond money that the CDD manages. They just throw it over the fence. They call up the county. We're done with this, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to solidify that to the residents, and now you have to maintain it. There's no inspection done. There's no engineers out there for these communities that say that these parcels should be developed and handed over for maintenance. There's a big problem, and it just doesn't start at the initial application. It starts throughout the entire process, end to end, when they actually turn it over to the residents and to the county. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. We'll move on to a very related topic, and this time we'll start with Mr. McMullen. Traffic congestion has become a major concern throughout the county. What specific transportation initiatives would you prioritize to handle this problem, and how would you fund them?
Anything and everything. Like I said, I believe that we've had a county that's been asleep at the wheel for far too long. They've been chasing developer dollars. And I'll put it, I think about things in a systemic sort of format. So to pay our bills, they always say we need more money for infrastructure, we need more money for schools, and we absolutely do. So to change that and to fund, they say, oh, we'll approve 10,000 acres of new homes, 10,000 acres of new homes development. I think instead of doing that, let's put in 100 or 200 acres of high-tech manufacturing, technology, healthcare, or professional services. Let's bring in a corporate headquarters. That way, we have the funds to build more infrastructure, better infrastructure, but we don't have to add to the problem. So it's like a self-perpetuating cycle. We have bad infrastructure, but we need to fund it, so let's build more houses. Well, then you put additional strain on the infrastructure, and you put additional strain on the schools, so then you have to approve more houses. And again, in a sort of snowball effect where you end up in a malaise situation where traffic's worse, people are complaining, people are fed up, and no one has solutions. We need to diversify our tax base. We need to bring in healthcare technology, high-tech and precision manufacturing and professional services. We need to take the power away from the developers so that they don't control the purse strings to our county. So yes, I believe that we need to stop developing more houses, and we need to develop more business and industry. That's how we fix this problem.
First off, we need to focus. We need to focus on the things that need to be taken care of. We need to build things into the actual contracts to get the roads built. I live off of 210. There's about a little bit over a mile stretch of road that they were widening. That took almost 2 years. And like I said, the county actually ended up footing the bill for most of that because they didn't hold the developer accountable off the bat. Now, a lot of people sit up here and say, yeah, we're just going to bring these businesses in. We have 40 million acres that are right now zoned for commercial? 47 million acres. Businesses are going to come to this county. We are the wealthiest county, and if you looked at Florida as a state, not as a state, if it was its own country rather, we'd be the 15th largest economy in the world. And we are the wealthiest county in Florida. Our median income is about $20,000 more than the county behind us. Businesses are coming here. A county commissioner saying, I'm going to bring in aerospace and all this. Really, you're going to call Elon Musk and say, come to St. Johns County. We need to focus and actually get things done. All I've done in my entire life is get things done and focus, whether it be becoming a captain of a Division I football team, making the FBI, getting on the SWAT team, kicking down the doors of terrorists. We need focus.
I know that traffic and congestion are a concern. When I first moved out here with my business, established in 2017, there weren't as many commercial vehicles on the road at all hours of the day. And it's a little depressing to see so much traffic on a road that we know used to be under capacity. Now it's over capacity. But to answer the question more thoroughly, transit in general is a complicated issue, and we need a realistic approach. Bus systems where it's feasible, bike paths, pedestrian walkways, those are essentials. But at the end of the day, we all mostly, as a whole, depend on motor vehicles and cars. I'd like to see improved planning in terms of the flow of traffic. If there is a way to add a business route to make traffic not so cumbersome in our neighborhoods and where our high density residential areas are, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see commercial traffic kept more toward corridors, and that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
All right, so some of the things I've already talked about affect traffic. If there's already 35,000 homes approved and not built yet, those are things that have happened that we need good board members to help control those things. Like when I was already started, there was 10,000 homes already approved on the board, and there's 15,000 approved by another commissioner. And since then, we work so hard to try to get back together and get these grants. There's a ton of grants out there. Actually, we have a bunch of money right now, thanks to some of the people in this room. We have a grant for A1A here and all intersections. So we're working. I spent all day today with Kim Kendall, with FDOT, Jim Knight, with Tyler, with our team. I spoke to Greg Leonard and Jane Evans. We are working so hard to make it work here in the grant money that we have and spend all the money to make it better and flow better, as well as just all day I worked on that. I just came from work. So it's not that we're ignoring it, but we're having to work every single section and do it right. And as in industrial, we are working. I'm on the Industrial Development Authority. We are working with Grumman to bring another defense contractor in that's going to be right across the street for him. We are working on 18-year-olds that get out of high school and they go right to him and he trains them. They can afford by 21 years old to buy a home and live in our county. There's so much going on that you have to research and get up to speed. I'm already up to speed. Do we want someone who has not known anything and doesn't have as long of history as I already have? Thank you.
So the traffic problem in St. Johns County has been going on for 15 years and it's been building. And most people here can probably remember 10 years ago that the time the traffic was the worst in Ponte Vedra was during the week of TPC. It always backed up and everybody, some people even took that week of vacation, went out of town because the traffic was horrible. Well, about 10 years ago, we started bringing the traffic engineers up, working out of the Sheriff's Command trailer, and they're monitoring the traffic lights and adjusting them on the fly. Well, it used to be 1 week a year was a bad week for traffic in Ponte Vedra. Now, that's the only good week because they manage that light and traffic flows. Pay attention to it the next year and watch how much easier traffic flows. Now we have 51 bad weeks a year and we have 1 good week. There's systems we can put in place now without having to have the state come in and tell us how to run our county. I think that we can do it, but it takes time to fix that. As a longtime deputy sheriff of St. Johns County and as a traffic homicide investigator for 25 of those years, I understand traffic patterns, traffic flows, the causation of traffic crashes. we have a lot of people that haven't been out there dealing in that traffic that are managing it. We need somebody that has some knowledge and some experience behind it. Thank you.
Sure. What specific transportation initiatives would you prioritize to handle this problem? How would you fund them?
We need to diversify also our transportation. It can't just be, let's throw money at it, more money that we don't have. The state's probably not going to give us. And let's try to look at the bus situation. Jacksonville JTA is already in talks that we should have some sort of public transportation. We also need to bring businesses, offices that work within this county to alleviate that stress. Not only is that going to bring more revenue here, but it's also going to have the people off the streets. 2 birds, 1 stone. Think smarter, think harder, work harder, and lead these people to another option. It's not just build more roads. I don't want to look at a concrete parkway where all of our parks and our beautiful beaches are covered in pavement. There's other options, and we need to be able to look at those, obviously make sure that they make sense for the region, that bus routes are going to need to be coming, and also make sure that the businesses are there. I was like, I have 30 more seconds. So I think, we've had money, and it has not been spent from the county. So we need to think about that too. In my finance and corporate banking background, I will look at every line item, make sure that there's a project plan, that there's where that money's going, so that way there's nothing missed. We have to be able to understand our budget, understand where that's going, and implement it with the right leadership. Thank you.
As I said earlier, with 200 projects already being approved, we have to make sure that that money is coming from the developers. Whether we like it or not, the deal's already been made. We need to make sure that they're paying the fair share that they promised to pay when they started these subdivisions. 85% of our taxes, rooftop taxes, come from the residents. We need to attract, as Will said earlier, we need to attract bigger businesses here, career-minded businesses that keep our young people here where our families aren't broken up. A lot of our people commute out of Jacksonville, out of Daytona, into St. Johns County to work. We have to stop that. We have to start building some type of business here that keeps our residents here in town and working. There's plenty of great state grants and federal grants out there. We just need to tap into those. And I think, as Sam said a little bit ago, our current signals, traffic signals here, we need to make sure they're operating at max capacity. Our traffic patterns, the traffic flow that they've recently designed as far as 16 and 95 is some of the worst I've ever seen. It took them 3 years to come up with that. I guarantee you probably a handful of 16-year-olds on e-bikes could have fixed that a lot sooner. So we got to make sure that these companies we're paying good money to fix our problem are actually fixing our problem and not contributing to it.
All right, thank you all. Relevant to the topic of commuting, this next question is about workforce housing, and we'll start with Mr. Pishimuka. St. Johns County's reputation for excellence attracts families and businesses, but teachers, first responders, healthcare workers, and other essential employees are increasingly unable to afford to live in the community they serve. Would you support expanding workforce housing options? If so, what specific initiatives would you support? If not, what do you believe can be done to make sure these essential employees continue to work in the county?
Thank you for the question. I always hear this question. I say you have to really listen to a question before you answer it. Are they trying to tug at your heartstrings? First responders, teachers, nurses, they can't afford to live here. This question came up in the last debate or forum, whatever you want to call this. The workforce housing program is a Trojan horse by developers to pull on people's heartstrings, to make it look like people can't afford to live in this county who actually want to live in this county. One of the people at this, it was brought up that the law enforcement salary is $90,000 a year here in St. Johns County. So $90,000 a year plus a little bit of personal responsibility, and you can buy a home here. I have 3 or 4 law enforcement officers in my neighborhood. And I live in not a great neighborhood, not a $1 million homes neighborhood, but it's a nice neighborhood. So as far as with the workforce housing, it is like a Trojan horse. If it were to stay workforce housing permanently, but they sell it as you can get into workforce housing and it'll have like a 3 to 5 year deed on it, thank you, and then it reverts back to normal housing. So we didn't fix the problem, we just made it worse. And the developers made a ton of money off of pulling on your heartstrings.
This is a complicated question because we do want to retain our wonderful teachers who have made our schools, I believe, #1 for a considerable duration. It takes a lot of fortitude to serve on law enforcement, and there are other first responders as well. It does strain our existing infrastructure to see workers that are going to be here every day having to commute in. But at the same time, we have to be good stewards with our budget and use our money as wisely as possible. I believe that Habitat for Humanity and other wonderful organizations that can be utilized for this initiative requires reaching out and having a very thorough conversation, as well as with the builders that are going to be responsible for the construction. And we also have to address the infrastructure requirements. Where would subsidized public employee housing be placed? Is it efficient? Is it more efficient to raise their salaries? That's a question I'm going to answer.
Very well said. I'm one for raising people's salaries so they can afford to have a supply and a demand. I'm a Republican. Supply and demand is important to understand. When the houses slow down, like now, we're seeing the prices go down. I actually went to Zillow, 7/13/26, homes for sale, 95,000 to 300,000. There's 530 homes in St. Johns County available. 95 to 250, there's 309 homes available. For rentals, $475 a month, that's pretty low, to $1,500 a month. There's 169 availabilities. Now, what Martin was saying is about Trojan horses. What that means is the developer can come in and say, I'm going to build workforce housing. 20% of my project is going to be workforce housing. That's going to be higher, more dense, bring more people into a small place, add more traffic, add more kids in the schoolroom. It's you guys that are subsidizing that. And if it's okay and you want to subsidize that, that's a whole nother ball game. And as in traveling to your work, I mean, this is facetious, you guys, but should we have an ordinance that says everyone must live 6 miles from their work? So it's America. We want to live where we want to live. I drive 45 minutes to my job in St. Augustine. Thank you.
Well, I think Martin just off a little bit on that salary. I think that was an average. Martin, starting deputy is about 62,000. Is that right? Okay, the deputies are confirmed about 62,000. Teachers make about 45 or 50,000. If a single educator moves in here and is making 50, let's say 50,000, they can't afford to buy a house. If a deputy's making 62,000 starting out, he either has to have a wife with a really good job, or a spouse with a really good job, or he's got to do 2 or 3 extra duty jobs. Got to work overtime, got to do some other stuff. And the rest of the industry is not being forced to work overtime to be able to afford a house. There are some affordable homes out there. They're making it work, but I would rather have the deputies, the teachers, and the paramedics and firefighters living in our community. I want them invested in our community, and when they live here, they're more invested. So we just got to get with it and figure it out. But we also got to get out and we got to do these town hall meetings and talk to our citizens. What do y'all want us to do about it? Because if I'm a commissioner, every one of y'all are my boss. And I've got to come to you and say, what am I doing well and what do I need to do better? Because if I know what I need to do better, I will be better. But also, if I know what you want, then I'm voting with an educated decision not just making it based on what I think or what 10 people in front of me at the meeting say. Thank you.
Yeah, I think workforce housing obviously is correct for the right area. It is up to you as residents to decide and help us understand what you think. But more importantly, it's an issue, period. No matter what anyone says, we most certainly need a business and a workforce housing for people to stay in St. Johns County. What's happening is people are leaving. They're not coming back. They're not going to come back to buy these high, expensive homes just because, they love the area, but they're not going to come back because they've made their life somewhere else. I would like to see this community stay together. I would like to see these people stay here, work here, so we can be sustainable by ourselves. Why are we shifting people off to different counties, losing the revenue, because everything that they do when they're at their job and not here in St. Johns County, that revenue isn't coming here. So this is, again, why we're so controlled and why all of us are paying the bill and footing the bill. Let's think about that just a little bit more. I think there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen first. I want to ensure that the right teams are available so we can be creative with this. I've said in the past, on-the-job training, that's huge. To have somebody that starts their career here, we need skilled trades, but we also need the other side of that, people that don't want to go into the college or the universities. They want to be trained and worked into an office environment. That's all I got. Thanks.
I think you had a pretty fair assessment of what the breakdown of salaries are for our first responders, our school teachers. Jacksonville's fixing to go to $82,000 a year, October 1. A lot of our deputies, firemen already live in Duval County because they can't afford to live here. So what do you think is going to happen when that happens? Is the deputy going to continue to drive 45 minutes to St. Johns County? We're the richest county, but some of the lower paid on the end as far as law enforcement officers. We got the fire department that's been an impasse with their union contract for 8 months now. No end in sight with that. So what incentive do they have to come to St. Johns County when they can live in a county that's affordable and going to pay them more? And I think you're going to see a lot of our firemen, maybe even our law enforcement officer, definitely our law enforcement officer, going to jump ship and go to JSO. When I first started in law enforcement in 2000, Neil Perry had a saying, if you're going to be a St. Johns County deputy, you're going to live in St. Johns County. And the reason's pretty simple. If you need a law enforcement officer, do you want them 45 minutes, an hour away? And that little boy, that little girl's missing. Your father, your mother, your grandparents with Alzheimer's walked away. Do you want a deputy responding from Duval County or Flagler County or Putnam County? No, you want them here. They should be allowed to live where they work and where they serve the community.
Yeah, I'd just like to completely agree with what Timothy said. I believe that our county should be available for everybody, our first responders, our teachers. I have a friend whose son is an English teacher at one of the local high schools here, and he has to commute over an hour a day. And they say talent is the new currency. We have the best schools, they say, in the state. Do we want to keep the best schools in the state? Well, then we need people who have a good quality, who want to come here, who are great. So to do that, they need to have a good quality of life. Some people say, oh, I don't mind commuting an hour and a half every morning back and forth, or I don't mind 45 minutes. Trust me, I've done it. I never enjoyed it. I'd much rather have a 15-minute commute or a 20-minute commute. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's a quality of life issue. 72,000 people every single day commute out of the county for work because they don't have opportunities here. And 40,000 commute into the county because they can't afford to live here. And that's your first responders, that's your teachers. I think we have to have housing solutions at every single stage from entry level. So especially young professionals and families that are just getting started, they can afford to live, work, and thrive here in St. Johns County. And I think that's a really great thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. And especially for people who have lived here for a long time. I talk to a lot of people. I canvass and I make phone calls every single day. And a lot of the things that a lot of people that are forgotten are the seniors, people on fixed incomes, older people who have lived here a really long time, but because their taxes have gone up, their insurance has gone up, they can't afford to keep their house anymore. So what are they going to do? They don't want to move to some other county. They want to stay where their family and their friends and their community are. So we have to have housing options for everybody. It can't just be exclusive just for, the ultra wealthy. You can't have a community that way. Look at the villages. I mean, they formed their... Sorry, I wish we had more time. It's a very complicated issue.
We all do too. But thank you all for your answers. We're going to move on to the question of property taxes, and here we'll start with Mr. Galloway. In November, Floridians will likely vote on an amendment that will significantly reduce property taxes by increasing the homestead exemption by $200,000 over the next 2 years. Accordingly, over that same period, local governments across the state would face a roughly $13 billion shortfall, a substantial revenue source for many support services, such as first responders, parks, and libraries. I'm going to ask this question in 2 parts, and this will be for everyone. First, just by a simple show of hands, do you plan to vote in favor of this measure? That's for everyone. All right. Second, if Florida voters approve such a measure, and this is starting with Mr. Galloway, how would you ensure essential county services are maintained while minimizing new financial burdens on residents? What specific revenue sources or budget strategies would you pursue?
This is a very important question, and it is important to look at our budget as a whole and not want to make cuts to people's ability to have access to those resources. So to make up the difference, we'd have to diversify the tax base. Now, as a small business owner, a small local business owner, I'm all for that. I like to encourage small businesses to succeed as I've succeeded for the last 10 years. There is a wonderful opportunity to do business in St. Johns County, and promoting local businesses is a policy that our county should adopt wholeheartedly. We're not going to meet all of our budget needs just by impact fees and other infrastructure requirements from developers, and we don't want to stagnate our economy where we're not responsibly growing it. I'd like to bring in targeted, clean, high-profile industry, such as medical or medical-related. Thank you so much. I'll talk more about this soon.
Okay, I didn't want to answer your question yes or no because I'm really not there yet, because right now we're going through the budget and I want to see them cutting. I mean, I want to see our budget cut, which I did as chair. I cut it 5-0. Everybody agreed, and we rolled back the taxes a year ago. So I do think line by line, we can at least save all kinds of money in different areas of our county, number one. Number two, it will affect your services if it does pass. 3, the park bond, it is not on rooftops. I called Wade, who's the head of our accounting, 2 days ago because this question's come up, and he said it's on, we use impact fees, the state sales tax, TDC money, and it's not based on rooftops. So right there, the parks can be finished without it impacting by the ad valorem. And then right now I met with a hospital, Advent Hospital. We just opened the new hospital, which we're trying to get more medical. It's a perfect clean business to come in and into our 40,000 square feet of 40 million square feet of commercial. And I talked to him about would he sponsor a park, and for $1 million they would like to call one of our parks Advent. So, you know, there's ways that we can do it if we have to. Commercial concurrency was voted down 3-2. Ann and I supported commercial concurrency. Walmart has 10,000 cars hitting our roads. They don't have to pay a dime towards the road. We feel that they should have paid money towards the road, so then you guys had to pay for it. I talked about everything. Thank you. Sorry, Jane.
Well, I think the budget needs to be looked at just like it did at the jail when I went there. I think when you look into a budget, you ask questions. You go, why are we doing it this way? If the answer is, well, this way we've always done it, that's a bad answer. There's got to be a reason we started something that way, and is it still valid? If it's not, we need to reassess it. As if this goes into effect and we lose the money from the ad valorem taxes, some of the non-homestead exemptions ones are going to go up and help make up some of that. But we've got to look in there and see where we're wasting money or where we can be better how we spend our money. You know, there's grants available from the state, but when the state gives you money, it comes with conditions. And then who's running St. Johns County? Is it St. Johns County or is it the state? So we've got to this is going to be a challenge for whatever 5 people up there at the end of the year if this goes into effect, because there's going to be a lot of work looked into this, and there's got to be some efficiencies found. And I am confident that there is plenty of efficiencies in there to help make up some of that difference. So hope with a lot of work and a lot of ingenuity and vision, I think that we can do this with very little impact to the county.
Yeah, I didn't answer your question either, to be honest, because I'm not there yet in my final decision. I've been wavering back and forth, but I think about a woman that is, or a retired gentleman as well, that is literally crying, right, to their friends, their family, that they cannot afford to live here anymore. That breaks my heart. I want to make sure that we're actually able to decrease taxes. With my finance background, just let me at those books. I swear I'll find it. I've done it before. I've saved my community over $100,000 in developer funds, made them pay instead of residents. I will find it. I will be able to be creative with the contract negotiations with these developers to ensure that they are paying their piece of the pie. I am very concerned about any service fees. The fact that if and when this passes, any fees that the county would have to make up in that budget would have to come from every single business that you walk into. That scares me. I'm not trying to say you're not paying the taxes and you're just going to pay it somewhere else. That's why I'm saying I'm not sure where I am yet. I know in my capabilities with the budget and what I can do to ensure that we naturally make those cuts without having to make you vote and make that decision. Because if you're pinning the county to make that decision for you, that's not what we want either. We want to make sure that it's responsible and ready to go when we need it. Thank you.
If this occur, I know we all don't want to see any cuts to our essential services, our law enforcement, our fire rescue, our public works, but that's the possible reality that we're facing. You know, what's the real good answer? I think we need to audit the county. We need to know where our money's going for those who receive a budget. We need to make sure that they are spending the money the way they were intended to spend it. We need to get to a zero-base budget, and we need to hold them to it. You know, it's one thing you see a budget approved by the county commission, and it goes to that department or that agency, and then you never hear anything back. Only time you hear from them again is when it's time to get more money. But you as a taxpayer, me as a taxpayer, and everybody else up here as a taxpayer have a right to know where that money is being spent. It needs to be transparent, and it needs to be, you know, what is in the best interest of the people. And, you know, talking to people out, you know, campaigning, and, you know, you pay off your house. Do you truly own your house? You know, you're still going to have taxes you have to pay. And that's the biggest concern for some of the elderly people that, you know, are getting up there on fixed incomes. They can't afford to pay property taxes. You know, it's something we need to look at as well. But it's something that the state shouldn't be getting involved in. It's something that should be a county issue. And it's something that should be slow rolled by the county if that's the direction we wanted to go.
Well, first off, based on my conversations with just about tens of thousands of people in this county and across the state, is that I think it's a moot point because I think it's going to pass. A lot of people are hurting. They can't afford to pay their bills, and it's on both ends of the spectrum. It's the young people, it's the older people, and it's a lot of the people in the middle that you think are doing great, but, you know, sometimes appearances can be deceiving. So essentially, I think it's going to happen. And for the record, I'm a huge proponent of getting rid of all taxes on homesteaded properties. Always have been. It's one of the things that I wanted to run on because affordability is one of my main platforms. I think that if you own your home, you shouldn't be able to get kicked out because you can't afford property taxes, because then you don't necessarily own your home. So that's my position. In terms of dealing with this, I think we had a big wake-up call in 2008 when we had to lay off over 30% of our county workforce because we couldn't afford to pay the bills. And that's when the county commission, if they were doing their job and not asleep at the wheel, they would have said, hey, we're too dependent on homestead properties for our tax income. Why do we start diversifying? Only 13%, I think it was 10% back then. We've done 3 percentage points since 2008. Yay. The state average is 35. Why don't we start working on that? Instead, they didn't. Because we were so broke, they had to make a lot of bad deals with a lot of bad people just to keep the lights on. And that's kind of what got us into this situation to begin with. That's when all these developments that we're seeing, the fruits now, were actually approved 15, 20 years ago back in 2008. So what will we do? Of course, we need to, at a very minimum, cut every single thing that we possibly can without sacrificing the quality of life we have, at least an annual, if not a biannual review of all cents and dollars in our budget. And we need to start immediately on diversifying our tax base.
Well, I've been saying this for 4 months that I've been on the campaign trail, and I've heard a lot of the things I've said reiterated up here already. I just did a little math on my phone. I wasn't texting before, I promise. Does anyone know the percent that we'd actually lose from our current budget with the homestead tax exemption going up? Any guesses? Come on. Interaction. 10%, 20%, 3%. Our budget is $1.9 billion. It was $920 million in 2020. That is unsustainable growth. So if it passes, that's fine. And I say, I was going to do the same thing I was going to do anyway. We are going to have a full, legitimate audit of everything in the county, starting with the bloated bureaucratic salaries of 300 plus for our current county administrator, going all the way down to how every contract is awarded and making sure that there's no conflicts of interest, and also what are the profit margins that these people that are awarded these contracts getting. And by the way, we are also going to have full conflict of interest disclosures before every vote. We see what's going on in the county. Those who have eyes, let them see. Those who have ears, let them hear. We need to save this county.
All right. Again, thank you for your responses, all of you on that. Moving to the next question, we'll start with Ms. Keating-Joseph. The county has made efforts to increase transparency and improve public communication in recent years. Still, many residents want more opportunities for meaningful public input early in the decision-making process. What specific steps would you take to lower barriers to participation, help residents understand how to engage, and ensure that those who do show up feel their input genuinely matters?
I did this from day one 4 years ago. I have been giving everyone ways how to come to the meetings. I tell them if they want to be heard, you get a whole bunch of people to the meetings, you send a lot of emails. We are now getting tons of emails. We are getting 200 or 300 people at the meetings when they want to see something changed. They all read the same script. They keep going. They contact me. I had 175 emails this last week to now regarding A1A. I returned every email and I called anyone who had a phone number on there. I am doing as much as I can to keep it open and everyone knowing what is going on. I don't hide anything. I try to film and do as much as I can. We have GTV. You can watch all the meetings. You can come to the meetings, and public comment is first. So you can come at 9, you can say your comment, and then you can leave. You have 3 minutes. You can talk about your child's painting, or you can talk about something that is distressful to you, like flooding in your yard or the neighbor building a house too high. You can do whatever you want to do in this county, and there's called a citizens, it's called Citizens Teaching, or I can't remember the exact name, but you can sign up and have classes with the county and learn all about the county over and over again. And they have them every 2 months. So you can sign up, you get lunch, you come and you learn about all the divisions of the county. There are so many opportunities. There's advisory boards. We need advisors. Go on the advisory board website, brand new website, and sign up because we need you. Thanks.
Well,
Citizens Academy, sorry.
That's okay. The county, just like any organization, the biggest problem they're ever going to have is communication. I've made it public that I would hold a town hall meeting in my district every month, because how do you know how you vote if you don't know what your folks want? I put out that I want to establish a two-way communication that people can communicate to us, and we have emails, but there's not a lot of people communicating on the emails. There's got to be a way that makes it easy, whether it's an app on a phone or something, for people to reach out to their county commissioners. I think we should roundtable problems. I think at the table, I think you should have your commissioners, you should have the public, you should have our educators, we should have our first responders and even our developers at the table to find out how we're going to do things. Because if I help if we make a decision to help one person, is a negative impact on this one? If it is, then we need to figure what we're going to do. And also, we want to hear from the public, but the county commission meeting is Tuesday at 9 a.m. How many people here have a job that you work on Tuesdays? Maybe we need to have a meeting once a month at night, starting at 6 p.m., so everybody in this community can be heard at least once a month. Because when you do it during the day, if you work during the day, you're not attending that meeting. You might get to watch it on TV, but your voice is not being heard. Thank you.
So this is one of the most important things that I started with in my community. When I got elected into seat 1 at the CDD, the first thing that I did was weekly meetings. I'm already doing it now in the campaign. I've already set up specifically in my district to ensure that weekly meetings are happening with the correct people to make sure that they have their voices heard, from Hastings all the way up to 210. I want to make sure that you guys are heard. You shouldn't have to attend a board meeting. Whatever time we decide to have it, you should be able to have that open and honest communication starting day 1. I love a project plan. I love action items to make sure that you guys have a visibility to see what's going on, what are we working on, and where is it? Why isn't that available today? We should be able to let you guys go to the website, see this action item that we're working on, this road's being developed, and this is what's happening with it. No, we're reactive. You have to call 500 people. They're all very nice, by the way. But you have to call them all, figure out who to get transferred to. It is a maze of people. That's not fair. Let's be proactive. Let's work together. Let's ensure that you guys have your voices heard. I agree, we do need to have more advisory boards, so I do think that you guys should engage if you're able to, but that shouldn't be necessary. You should be able to have a direct line. You are the people that I serve, you are who I want to listen to, and you are going to be heard when you elect me on August 18th. Thank you.
This has been an ongoing issue, not only in this arena, but in law enforcement as well. We had advisory boards when I ran. Everything from south of 207 to Flagler and Putnam County was under me as a captain. And I had different groups that I met with monthly, and we had discussions about what was going on, what they wanted to see us do better, what we could be doing better, what we were doing wrong, and where we needed to fix things. First thing is the community needs to know that you're honest, you're ethical, you're morally sound, and you're transparent. They have to believe that and know for a fact that you have their best interests in mind. Some of the things I hear out here is they'll email a commissioner, or they'll call a commissioner, or they'll try to make arrangements to have a meeting with a commissioner and never hear anything back. If elected, I'll always be there. That's one thing I've always done as a law enforcement officer. I learned from an early stage is if the citizen calls, you answer. If they ask to see you, you go see them. You just don't shove those people off. Those are the people that depend on us, and those are the people that pay our wages. They pay their taxes, and that's who we should be representing on a daily basis.
Could you repeat the question one more time? I just want to make sure I got it.
Absolutely. What specific steps would you take to lower barriers to participation, help residents understand how to engage, and ensure that those who do show up feel their input genuinely matters?
Well, thankfully, this is an easy one. This is something that shouldn't even be a question. It shouldn't even be an issue. We should have a transparent, good communicating, and a responsive county government. And unfortunately, the reason people are so upset that for too long we've had a county commission that's asleep at the wheel. They've been too busy either fighting with each other or fighting with special interest groups rather than fighting the problems that exist in our county. And it's a shame. It's a dang shame. And communication also goes both ways. I was meeting with some top leaders of the city of St. Augustine the other day, and did you know that if you're a resident of St. Johns County, you can park in the city for basically free? I didn't know that. Does anybody know that? That's amazing. So we need to get communication going both ways. We need to have some sort of dialogue via the internet or whatever, so that if you need a question, you can get it answered immediately. In addition to that, I think we need more responsive, more objectively caring commissioners who have an open door policy. So that if someone comes to them, they don't get blown off, either with a page or somebody that answers the phone and never calls back, or never responds to emails. And I've seen it personally. When I first started running, I reached out to every single county commissioner, and I tell you, I did not hear back from all of them. I didn't. Some responded, some didn't. Some met, some didn't. So it's uneven. I think that we have to have more transparency, and I think we have to have more accountability. So if there is a commissioner who's not doing their job, and if they are asleep at the wheel, it needs to be brought to light. Thank you.
Well, we definitely need integrity in our government. I don't like the word transparency because we have a transparency department here in St. Johns County, and that costs about $9 million a year. You know what you can't find on St. Johns County is how your county commissioners actually voted. That would take about 2 seconds in today's technically advanced world to get that out there. But to make it easier for the residents, I would move all county commissioner meetings to the afternoon, evening hours so everybody could attend and be a part of it. I would just keep doing what I'm doing now, and that's going out, talking to folks, returning their calls, finding out what their issues are, and responding. This is a full-time job for me. I have been doing it as a full-time job for 4 months already. I am the only one who qualified via petition, and I respond to people. I was just down in Flagler Estates yesterday, knocking on doors, and a gal was telling me about the drainage problem in front of her house. Now, I can't do anything about it right now, besides go down there with a shovel and dig it out myself. But these are the things that are going to get handled. We are going to start serving the residents first. No longer the developer-funded commissioners are going to be running this county and ruining it for everybody. And I may seem a little passionate up here, maybe even a little agitated, but I've also talked to thousands of people that have been crying as I knock on their door, breaking down in tears. So I am passionate about this.
Encouraging participation is a hallmark of good leadership, and I've built my business on excellent customer service and responsiveness. All of my clients have my cell, and if and when I'm a county commissioner, I'll be available via phone or text, email, or any of the other communication apps. Being a local small business owner, that was one of my secrets, if you will, to success, was being very approachable. And I'm very approachable now as a politician. One of my favorite things to do is to go to farmers markets. There's so many wonderful farmers markets and other similar events in the community that I just have been going to every, as often as I can. And I'm always very, very willing to take the time to listen to what a vendor has to say or what somebody else has to say about an issue that's important to them. I think that getting out there in a leadership commissioner capacity and being a public face is important, and I will be at every event that I can be. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you all. Our next question will start with Mr. Williams at the end. As a county commissioner, many of the developers and land use attorneys who will appear before your board are also campaign donors, which could potentially lead to a conflict of interest. Please answer this question in 2 parts. First, what would you consider to constitute a conflict of interest? Second, would you commit to recusing yourself from any vote involving someone who has contributed to your campaign?
Yeah, I think a conflict of interest is anybody that has made a huge donation to your campaign and there's a sense of you owe them. I can't imagine anybody up here is going to take any donation from a developer. Those are bad words in this community. So I just, I think that everybody needs to be heard. I think that you need to, again, the table with everybody at the table for the issues, but I'm uncorruptible. I have a 30-year career at the sheriff's office with 0 discipline. You can't corrupt me. So the the developers that have had so much control, when they when they find resistance at the county level, they move on to the state. And then we got to be careful, because if the state accepts some type of deal from them, then it's going to negatively impact us. So we just have to stand strong in our faith and firm in what we're willing to allow for our community.
Yeah, absolutely. The corruption isn't just with making sure that your votes are accused if you have any type of involvement or they've ever donated to your campaign, but it goes beyond that. And right now, we need to focus on the issues. We need to make sure that the people that are there have integrity. They have a head between their two shoulders, and they can stand on their own and know what they are here for. The quality of life of residents, period. There is no special interest that could sway a vote of mine. There is no way that I would be able to consciously be able to make a vote with any of special interest inclusion in the day-to-day. And I hope that the other board members would also do the same. Thank you.
First off, I've not taken any donations from any developer or builder or anything like that, so we don't have to worry about that. If they do donate it, it will be returned to them. You know, I was taught at an early age to be honest, be ethical, and just be the best person you can be. That's how I was, raised by my parents, and that's why I became a law enforcement officer later on. I can't think of a situation I'd ever put myself in to have to excuse myself or accuse myself from a vote or anything like that. And I hope nobody else up on this board would. I'm almost confident they wouldn't. But yeah, I can't think of a situation. It's inexcusable. It's you see the situation we're in now, and it's embarrassing to this county. And having grown up here, lived my whole life in this county, I would never do anything to embarrass this county and jeopardize the future and the direction that we're going.
With regard to what constitutes a conflict of interest, I think that's probably a good question for James to answer, as I'm not an attorney. But from my general understanding, it's tit for tat, pay to play. Somebody gives you money and then you give them something in return. And that is fundamentally reprehensible. And that's not the way our democracy should function. If I had to say my greatest weakness that I'm still working on is that I'm too trusting of people. And that's got me in trouble in the past, in that when I got into politics, I thought that people got into the political theater and got into the political realm because they wanted to make a difference. And I very quickly found out that that's not always the case. There are people that do this to become famous, but more than anything, they do it to make a lot of money and gain influence. And they do that by giving people favors. And it's absolutely reprehensible. So if someone gives you money, from a fundamentally moral level, you shouldn't owe them anything. You shouldn't do favors for them. So I am someone who's from here. I've lived here my entire life, other than a couple stints for work and for school. I am not running for a special interest, for a big corporation, or to somehow do something for myself. I'm running to represent the people who live here. I have a daughter on the way, and I want to make sure that she can live in a county that's just as great as the one I grew up in, and that her kids and her grandkids can live in a county that's just as great as the one I grew up in. I'm not for special interests. I'm not for big corporations, and I'm not for anybody other than the people and the residents of St. Johns County, and nothing, God is my witness, can ever change that. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to address a few things here. Yes, I already said I'd be 100% for disclosing any conflicts of interest. Again, I've heard another thing I've been saying for 4 months. As soon as I started to run, I said I will not take a dime of developer money because they have been heavily subsidized on the backs of you, the taxpayers, for far too long. We did just have a big, huge scandal here. One of the people on the board that I'm sitting here with said it was an alleged fake voter guide. It was a fake voter guide, folks. It was not alleged. And it is not white noise either. To characterize it as white noise is reprehensible. We have another candidate on the podium with me right here who put fake testimonials on his website. Talking about trust, huh? Are you going to trust somebody who puts fake testimonials on their website? I sure as heck wouldn't. I investigated public corruption. I feel like it's divine intervention, what happened. Because I never wanted to be in politics. But I have 2 children. And I couldn't look them in the eye if I didn't run, knowing what I know. Thank you.
I've been a Florida attorney since, let me think, 2014. And I hold myself professionally to a very high standard. It's my livelihood. I enjoy reading ethics and professional responsibility opinions. And I've always been very careful not to have any sort of conflict. As an attorney, you're supposed to do a conflicts check anytime somebody comes to have their legal issue presented to you. And I always do that. And it's good policy. As I had told Liz Ryan on 1055 St. Augustine, I won't take developer money on this campaign. And I think that being a professional requires a higher level of understanding about optics in certain situations to prevent possible conflicts to appear by not putting yourself in a position where they can form. So I'm very careful in who I allow to donate to my campaign, and I'll make sure that there are no conflicts for me.
I've never had to recuse myself, and hopefully I have no conflicts that I know about. I don't have a conflict. But I'm sitting here on this, and I see all these people here saying how they would never do it, and you can trust me, and all that. I've heard this for 4 years. I've seen commissioners break sunshine over and over and over again. I've taken pictures. I've turned them in. Nothing happened. They all just thought I was crazy. Do you know what? PGA tickets are free to all the employees. Guess what I do? I write a check every year and pay for my tickets because it's not fair to you. To the players. You know how expensive those tickets are? They will bring other people, I'm not saying who, would bring their whole families of 6 kids, 5 kids, whatever, and they're all free going in there. They go in, they eat the food of the people's tents and all this. No. I paid for my daughter, she's right over there, and I paid for anyone else I brought with, and I did pay for my own tickets. A second thing is I've had no lunch. The first day I started, a guy named Burnett, a lawyer, came in with a bunch of lunch. I said, no, I don't take lunch. I don't eat with anyone. I don't go out on restaurants. I don't have dinner with anyone that's going to be a conflict in my life. And lastly, I've had 3 people in the last 2 weeks tell me, well, I'm not going to vote for you anymore because you didn't rule in favor of me. I had another person email me saying, tell me before the election how you're going to vote on something. I wrote back that guy 2 days ago. I said, look it, sir, you know, this is unfair and it's not right, and I don't care either way. Thank you.
We are back at the top of the batting order here, so we will start again with Ms. Crawford. Turning to the topic of economic development, something several of you already brought up, county residents want to attract new high-quality jobs while maintaining the character of the community and continuing to support local businesses. What industries do you think would be a good fit for St. Johns County to pursue further, and what would be your strategy for attracting their support?
Absolutely. We need to attract the right businesses and have the salaries that match that obviously can sustain them to live here. I think most importantly, businesses, office jobs, finance would be great. Obviously, we already have healthcare. I mean, that's a great business to have here. Everyone comes to Florida because we have the greatest healthcare, right? I think small technology as well. We need to obviously make sure that we are sustaining that career development and business avenues that need to come to St. Johns County. Small tech is huge, right? So we want to make sure that we have some type of technology right here in St. Johns County, in addition to the healthcare and business management and or finance. When I moved down here with finance, and I think everyone said to make sure that you live in St. Johns County, and I drove every day in the bad traffic to Duval. I worked several hours a day, ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner in Duval County. And again, that revenue and everything that I did in Duval County didn't count for where I lived. So it just doesn't make sense, right? We need to think about what makes sense for St. Johns County. We need to make sure that we are bringing those businesses here so that way we can keep people here, which obviously then will reduce the traffic situation as well and the infrastructure. Thank you.
We definitely have a robust medical, field here in St. Johns County, aviation as well. We got a lot of big business people here in the county, from Ring Power and Randy Ringhaver to other business owners that are very intelligent. We need to form a committee or a roundtable from these people to sit down and talk to and get their buy-in on what they think will work in St. Johns County and what will not. There's a reason they're successful. We need to reach out to our universities and see what the major things that kids are taking in studies now, and see what is best for St. Johns County to move those type of industries in here. They got to be high paying, they got to be career oriented, and it's got to be something that's going to keep our children here. I don't want to see my children grow up, go to college, and not come back home. That's the whole thing of having a family. You want to keep them around you. But we need to identify those things. There's a lot of intelligence out there that can point us in the right direction. And, it's something that we should have been already doing and we haven't done. And it's something that definitely, if elected, I will look into that and get moving as quickly as we can.
Well, first off, there are some candidates who say, well, we're the richest county in the state. And? So? I think we should be the richest county in the country. Maybe the richest county in the world. I think that's a defeatist attitude, and it sounds a little bit like socialism to me. So a lot of people say that they argue over how we cut the pie. I should take this slice. I need a little more. I think we should grow the pie. I think we should grow our economy. So what it starts with is bringing in high-tech industry, precision and advanced manufacturing, healthcare, technology, and professional services. I'll ask the audience a question. If you found out that there was a factory in the United States of America that still manufactured aircraft, advanced aircraft from nose to tail, would you believe me? No, probably not. And if you did, you'd think is what? Maybe somewhere in Washington with Boeing, somewhere in Texas with everything that's going down there, maybe somewhere that's just, still hanging on in the Midwest. No, it's right here in St. Johns County. It's at our St. Johns County Airport, where Northrop Grumman builds the E-2D Advanced Early Warning Aircraft from nose to tail. They have wanted to expand now for almost a decade, and the county commission has not allowed them to grow. They have been begging for it, and honestly, we could switch that on overnight. I was at church, actually St. Francis, an Episcopal church, a few months ago, and they did the salute to the seniors, and the seniors came up and they gave their speeches. 6 seniors in total, 5 of which said they had no plans to move back to the county because there weren't any opportunities in their chosen lines of education. And 2 of those were engineers. We could have those engineering jobs overnight. We just haven't had the political will, and we've had a commission that's asleep at the wheel.
Well, like I said, yes, we are the wealthiest county in the state of Florida, and I don't know how that even sounds anything like socialism. I'm a capitalist, a free market capitalist at that. So we have a ton of health care coming to St. Johns County. I currently live in Beach Walk I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag how much longer I'm going to live in Beach Walk. But we have a huge assisted living facility being built right in Beach Walk. These medical type fields are coming. And yes, can we explore the other options? 100%. What happened here in St. Johns County is they went overboard, extremely overboard on the residential real estate. We need to slow the growth of the residential real estate. The businesses are going to come, and it's going to get us back into a balance. Now, we are most likely never going to have that ideal balance because at the end of the day, we are still a bedroom community of Duval. I don't think anybody wants to become Duval South here in St. Johns County. As far as making sure that the businesses come here, we also need to make sure that we're not subsidizing businesses that are on every corner. I actually went to the budget meetings. We give Publix $400,000 to subsidize Publix. Is that necessary? I don't think so.
Do you mind repeating the question?
Absolutely. What industries do you think would be a good fit for St. Johns County to pursue further? And what would be your strategy for attracting their support?
This is an excellent question. And I'd like to start with the importance of having a pipeline for our high schoolers and college graduates to have a realistic opportunity to work in St. Johns County. I am for small local businesses, as you know. I think that that is a wonderful opportunity to be an entrepreneur. To answer the question as far as geography goes, I think that North St. Johns County, we should target professional services, which would be engineers, architects, CPAs, doctors, physicians. And I'd like to see more of an emphasis on promoting local agriculture, clean local agriculture. I'd like to see some light healthcare and healthcare-related industry brought into our corridors or around our new hospital infrastructures. And I'd like to explore the opportunity of possible outside resources to promote economic activity, whether it be state or federal programs. Attracting local businesses or more businesses is an art, and I believe that I can bring that to the table. Thank you.
Well, it's kind of disappointing that no one here knows that we are doing these things. We're opening a tech college in Hastings at the old high school. We are attracting healthcare through the Industrial Development Authority, which I've been on for 2 years now. 700 acres near the airport's already zoned industrial, and we are looking at expanding Northern Grumman, which we are in talks with that. We are looking at another defense that has something directly to do with, which I can't talk about, with their business. We're looking at KEHI, who's an agriculture industry type combination of the new technology that's coming to agriculture, because we want to keep our ag lands. And it's exciting times, honestly. And when we were talking to Northern Grumman, they said that they take their planes and they put them on a flatbed barge and they ship them up to Jack's Port. So we have a port in St. Johns County. So I've asked Joy Andrews to look at how we can do more with that port than just that, because that is a huge industry. If somebody else was coming into town, they could use the same ability to bring them up to the to Jack's, their port. So anyway, thank you.
You know, all of our cars has a rearview mirror about this size, but a giant windshield. And when we spend all our time focusing on what went wrong in the past, we need to focus on more what is needed in the future. We got to have better vision. And the St. Johns County commissioners, they don't have all the answers. We got to bring people to the table that can help us with those answers. Because if you just focus on what we did wrong 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you're missing the point. The solution's not behind us, it's ahead of us. So I think we need to get people around the table, and we need to figure out what kind of industry that we need to bring in here with some help from experts that will help balance our county and balance our tax base. But we can't do that if we just worry about what we did wrong in the past, and we need to start looking forward. We got to have better vision, and we need the help to do that.
For this next question, we'll begin with Mr. Burris. One industry that was not explicitly mentioned on stage is the construction of AI supporting data centers, and that has become the focus of many heated debates in local governments around the country. St. Johns County officials have recently considered creating a temporary moratorium on the building of data centers until their impact can be better understood. What criteria would you consider when evaluating the pros and cons of locating a data center in St. Johns County?
Well, I would support a moratorium first and foremost, you know, but always too, and after the moratorium was over, if it was something that would not impact our environment, our green spaces, if it would be what the taxpayers actually want. I know this is a hot topic. It's going on in other counties. You know, people are freaked out and concerned about the environment, and rightfully so. The strain on our infrastructure, our grid powers, and things like that. I would do exactly what the taxpayers wanted. If it's something they wanted, then I would be willing to listen to it. And if it made sense for St. Johns County, then I would be willing to vote for it. But as far as an area, I would assume that we'd have to look at what type of data center it would be. There's a lot of unanswered questions, you know, potentially can be posed with that. Of course, you know, a lot of people are going to say, push it out to Hastings. They got plenty of land out there. You know what the people in Hastings are going to say? We don't want it out here. Push it back to World Golf Village. And we went through that several years ago with, we tried to do a pea farm out off of Armstrong Road in Hastings, and the residents didn't want it. And we stood back from it, and we said, okay, if you don't want it, then we don't want it. And I would take the same position as well with the taxpayers. If it's something they wanted, didn't put a strain on our infrastructure, and didn't hurt our environment, then we would look at it. And if you know, they wanted to go for it or didn't want it, then you know, we go from there.
Well, first off, I don't know if y'all looked outside, but we are finally getting some rain. We have needed rain. You look at the lakes around here, they're like the, you know, the Sahara Desert. You see the lines. We are low on water. We are in an E3 extreme drought. People, they're talking about water restrictions. Agriculture can't afford to pay for water for their fields. So right now, I don't think that we are in a position where it's feasible to even think about having a data center. I think the water should go to our people, our wildlife, and our farmlands before it gets sucked up, what little's left, to a data center. So absolutely not. I am 100% opposed to data center, and that's just on their water aspect, excuse me. In addition to that, you got to power these things. They are power hungry. And I don't know if y'all have looked at your electric bills recently, but they're not going down. So what do you think is going to happen if we start plopping these big, you know, electricity-sucking data centers down? It's not gonna, your bill's not going to go down. So that's two things. Three, they create these sonic effects, and it sounds kind of crazy, but have y'all heard of the Havana syndrome? It's a sonic weapon that they say they use on some of our embassy workers across the world, which causes people to almost go crazy. They have headaches, hear serious symptoms. And apparently these data centers put out these sonic waves over 2 miles away from where they're located. So within 2 miles away, people can't live, and that's not even mentioning the effect on wildlife. So from every fundamental aspect, I would oppose a data center. If they can solve those issues, if they can wave a magic wand and say, yeah, all these negative externalities can go away, then sure, I think it's something worth investigating. But I have seen no evidence to that, so as it stands, I'm 100% against data centers.
Well, on the back of my my materials that I go and door knock with, it says, do you want agricultural land or a data center? And it's kind of in jest because I've already said I'm against data centers, period. But I bumped into this gal who was from, I believe, Loudoun County in Virginia. And is that the capital of the data centers? And apparently they just had a meeting with the county commissioners at the state level talking about how great all these data centers are because they bring all this revenue. They bring this revenue. This, what's that? They have 40. They have 40. Okay. This gal was vehemently against. She said, this is on your card. I'm voting for you. No other questions needed. These things would destroy the county. Will mentioned that we're already in a water crisis and all the other negative things that go along with these data centers. But what people say and what they do is totally different things. We've had people tell you that I'm gonna slow the growth, and then they get on the board and they vote almost unanimously with the developer-funded commissioners. I am endorsed by the two non-developer funded commissioners who aren't currently charged. We are not going to have data centers here. They do not fit. You can't eat data.
As I've already gone on record with St. John's Citizen and St. Augustine TV, I don't support bringing data centers to St. Johns County. And I would support a moratorium on not bringing them here or discussing it further. What I would add to that is I would also not support any industry that negatively impacts our quality of life. I grew up here. I'm big on being outdoors. I love our beautiful beaches and conservation areas, our protected areas. This is our home, and we have to bring good, clean industry here that is going to improve things. I would go a step further and say that I'm a fan of green architecture. I like to see nice landscaping, and I don't like to just see concrete everywhere or stucco. I think that it improves our quality of life and our consciousness and our positivity and our mood, not to feel like we're living around concrete buildings or industry. So I'm all about green spaces, and I like benches for anyone that wants to visit them. Thank you so much.
Well said. I agree with you. I agree with this guy. And also, since it's a very simple answer for me, no. And so let me talk about my card for a second. So here's my card. I brought special cards tonight for this group because it's Ponte Vedra, it's my home. I love this place more than anything, and I don't want it to be destroyed by data centers, and I put no data centers. But what makes this card special is a picture of my husband. And I have regular ones with Martin on the back, but this is my special one for the community because this man 4 years ago, stood outside all day long, every day, waving my signs, thinking I had no chance in China to win the election. And I would have in the morning, I would get a phone call and they go, "Do you know where your husband is?" And I'd look over and he wasn't next to me, and he was on Racetrack Road in something at like 6 in the morning. And it was so cute, and he tried so hard. And so right before he died in January, he said, "Krista, you have to run again because it'll give you purpose and you love helping people." So anyway, these cards are there if you want a special reminder of, I put for Ron in the corner, and then you can see no data centers. Thank you.
My decisions on data centers will be based on y'all. I don't see that where it's a benefit for our community. I can see where it draws, like everybody else has said, it draws from our aquifer, it draws from our electric grid, and can do damage to our environment. So why would we want that? That's a question that seems to be coming up a lot lately, and I can't imagine there's anybody running for county commission or anybody sitting on the current commission board that would say, "That's a great deal." So yeah, no, I am not for data centers unless there is some proven way that it doesn't interfere with all the things that it currently interferes with. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. No data centers. Makes no sense. With my finance background, I don't know of any company that owns those data centers that would be willing to pay for the water and the property tax and the land in order to put one of them up. It makes no sense for them either. But I do believe a moratorium is necessary to make sure that it doesn't happen. It's way too dangerous for our water supply, for our environment, and for the lovely beaches and agriculture that we have here. So we got to know what we have here, and I really don't see it as an issue that anyone would even ask us to, because it is just way too expensive. And also we need to make sure that we have the control, right? Even though we say no, right? There may be another county that decides yes. So I'm very looking forward to meeting with other county commissioners, seeing what they're doing in other counties, making sure that it's not an adjacent county that would be making another decision and protecting us that way as well. Because even though we say no, we have partners and neighbors that we need to think about as well and make sure that they're going to say no too. Thank you.
Thank you all. This is going to be our final question for the evening, and just to switch up the order a little bit, we're going to start down at the very end with Mr. Williams and then come towards me. Whoever is elected in August will take office at a time of closer public attention to local government. What specific steps would you take in your first 6 months in office to rebuild trust and lead in a way that brings the community together rather than deepening the divide?
Well, I've got a list of, would develop a data-driven needs assessment. Until then, I will not approve any new plan amendments, rezoning, or PUDs. Within 45 days, I would make a motion to launch a dedicated two-way communication plan to reach and listen to our residents. I would create educational workshops for both commissioners and the public where the fundamentals are taught, because so many new commissioners go, it took me about a year to get this figured out. Well, if we have a workshop, maybe they get it figured out in the first month. I will make a motion for the one-year moratorium on data centers. And I would request to be appointed to the Industrial Development Authority, which Commissioner Joseph sits on now, and align to align the priorities and financial health of our community. We've got to solve problems. We've got to put our just because if I draw a 6 on the table, you may see a 9, I may see a 6. It doesn't mean either one of us are wrong. Until I'm willing to walk around and see that you see it as a 9, and you walk around and see it from my point of view and see it as a 6, we're always going to think the other person's wrong. We've got to start understanding other people's points of view, and that's what the round table would do with putting people at the table. Is that's the way you solve problems, is get the right people around the table.
All right, so what I'd like to point out is that this is not a reality, because there may be only 3 commissioners. We don't know how long that might happen. We don't know if there's going to be 5 commissioners, 2 coming back, 2 not coming back. We have no idea. Right now, as it sits, I know we have 3 commissioners. 2 of them have been here a year and a half. I've been here 4 years. I'm the most senior commissioner right now. I know how to get things done. There is 1,000 employees worried about the future. We need to calm them down and know that I can help lead, and we can get back on track of the things that we're trying to do right now. I have worked tireless. I can't even say it, I'm so tired. I've worked 2 weeks straight now to catch up and actually call people and email people from District 1 and District 2 that are being ignored right now. I dealt with someone today who said, no one's calling me, I'm on 13A, and I have a problem with a recycle plant behind me. I mean, I am working as hard as I possibly can, and I could use 2 more commissioners, but God knows, it could be experienced ones, which I'm hearing might be appointed. It could be the same ones. Who knows? But right now, the future I know is that I need to get going with the 2 commissioners I have, and hopefully another person becomes in Sarah Arnold's seat, because that's shorter and it's right away that we can get going. Thank you.
This is an excellent question, and I've done this mental projection. And I'd like to start by reviewing our public contracts and understanding the differences and categories and kind of how to organize them, because they are a reality, and it's good to understand the material that I'm responsible for on your behalf. I'd also take a very good look at our budget, because I think that getting ahead of a possible shortfall is better than letting it appear without mitigation. The budget is something that we can all agree we don't want there to be a deficit, and creating a plan to support small local businesses is a wonderful win-win altruistic leadership policy that I bring to the table. I'm, I think, unique in a sense that I've founded and run a small local business. I understand what it takes to do that, and I will support everyone who is going through the same challenges in doing that. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Thank you all so much for being here.
First thing I'll do, it might seem like a minor thing, but ban cell phones and other communication devices for county commissioners. I've watched too many BOCC meetings, and you look and see the commissioners texting, and you don't know who they're texting with. And 2 of those commissioners have just been charged. So we need to make sure that it is completely impartial, get cell phones out of the off the dais, and also emails and everything like that. We need commissioners who are actually going to be there to serve the residents. I'd also move the meetings to night meetings. I think, you know, if us as commissioners only have to come to 2 meetings a month, we can actually make it so it's easier for everybody else to get there. Day one, full independent audit of everything going on in the government. Full stop. Has to happen. There are a lot of other things that I'm going to do. Unfortunately, they're just not coming to mind right now. But I can assure you I am going to tell you the truth. And I think you've seen that here tonight. I didn't come with any talking points. I didn't come with any platitudes. And I gave you truth. And I will dig deep into everything that is ever spoken to me on there. I'm not going to take anything at face value.
Well, first off, I don't know if you've read the news. I think a lot of people have been talking about it. But we have 2 county commissioners who are in big trouble, potential, criminal misdemeanor or even worse charges. And at the same time, we have other commissioners who are just attacking. But this isn't just a recent phenomenon. I've spoken to so many people every single day. But over the past few weeks, months, and almost over a year, I've been planning this. And every single person says, our county commissioners, instead of fighting each other and trying to score cheap political points, they should be fighting the problems and delivering solutions. People know what the problems are. I hear it every single day. Traffic, schools, crime, you name it. They don't need politicians pointing out what the problems are. They already know what they are. They need politicians who are prepared and delivered to bring solutions on day one. I am by far the most qualified candidate on this panel, and what we need is a county commission that's not fighting each other, but is running like a well-oiled machine. All hands on deck. And we need the most qualified, the most capable, the most hardworking, and most importantly, the most objectively pure candidates. We need people who genuinely care, that are not here representing special interests, that are not here representing big corporations, but are here to represent the people. I'm just a resident, a lifelong resident who wants to make a difference, who's seen a lot of bad stuff going on and says, hey, instead of things getting worse, why don't we make things better? And that starts with focusing on solutions, not problems. Thank you very much.
We were asked a question at a forum not too long ago, what was the biggest issue facing St. Johns County? And I said dysfunction of the board. And now you can add corruption to that. And be mindful, you're 1/5 of the vote. A lot of people are going to promise you the moon and the stars and everything, but you're 1/5. And without a board that's willing to sit down, put their differences behind them, and be professional adults, we're never going to get anything done. And I can't disagree with Will anymore on the things that he said. We're all supposed to be Republicans. We just take cheap shots on one another constantly. For what reason? I've always kind of been against, running for whether it's sheriff or county commissioner. Why do we need an R or a D or an I next to our name? If we're truly representing the people of St. Johns County, why does that matter? I've never understood that. Nobody can give me an answer. One thing is you'll always get honesty. You'll always get transparency, whether you like the word or not. And my best interest is what is in the best interest of the citizens. Like I said before, I'm born and raised here pretty much my whole life. Other than when I went away to join the military, I came right back home, and there was a reason I came back home. This is home. This is where I've had 3 children, now 2 grandchildren. And if we don't stop the infighting and the name calling and the allegations that are just complete garbage, we're never going to get anything fixed.
Well, I started this meeting to tell you about my board and my CDD that I actually held the chair at. Not only did they induct me into that seat, they made me chair within a year. My board, we worked together for the residents. I worked to make sure that that traffic light was up. I ensured that the right people were attacking the developer, were making the right strides to make our community safe. I have saved our residents over $100,000 of developer funds to make sure that they didn't have to pay for it. I've brought soccer goals for families that need to play and work in our neighborhood. I have a board. I have a candidate that ran against me in my seat that is going to be endorsing me, that will put a video up of all the work that I've done. In addition to that, I'm a mom. I have 2 children that I want to keep in St. Johns County as long as I can, even though they're growing and they want to go further. I want them to live and grow close to me because I don't want them to go away from me. And I also want to make sure that all of you understand that I can be trusted and I have the qualifications that I've already shown to my community. And after 21 years of finance and banking background, I understand the budget and I understand these contracts in order to make these developers pay their share of the pie. I will work harder, I will lead, and I will listen. And I'll make sure that St. Johns County continues to be the best place to live. Thank you all for coming.
Well, that is our time, and it is actually exactly 8 o'clock on the dot. So thank all of you for your thoughtful responses, for getting us out of here on time, and for your time being here. Also want to thank the audience for being here as well, and for holding your applause until the moment that we just had. For the candidates, there's going to be some brief remarks as I exit the stage. Once again, thank you all.
On behalf of the Palm Valley Community Association and the Ponte Vedra Community Association, thank you so much for coming this evening. We want to thank all of the candidates for their time, and thank you all. Enjoy your evening.